He found out too late. Right now, private texts allegedly leaked by Charlie Kirk's sister are blowing up online, and they change everything. In those messages, Charlie admits, "I don't even feel like I know her anymore." A single line that turns a fairy tale marriage into a frightening mystery. From a chance sighting in Israel to a 3-hour meeting at Bill's Burgers, to sudden changes inside Turning Point USA, the timeline reeks of strategy, not coincidence. Tonight, I'll break down the texts, the insider claims, and the family ties that fuel the most explosive theory yet. Did destiny betray him? Or was his entire life quietly orchestrated? This is where the truth begins. Watch every detail closely. Watch, comment your take, and if you want more digging, like, share, and subscribe. When the alleged private texts between Charlie Kirk and his sister surfaced online, they didn't just trend, they detonated. The internet was flooded with screenshots, voice notes, and half-deleted threads showing words that seemed too personal to be public. The line that set everything ablaze read, "I don't even feel like I know her anymore." That single sentence flipped admiration into doubt, turning followers into investigators overnight. What started as whispers in private group chats became an all-out digital firestorm across platforms. Supporters demanded clarity, critics smelled scandal, and suddenly, everyone was dissecting the private life of one of the most prominent conservative figures. The authenticity of the texts remains unverified, yet their emotional power reshaped public perception instantly. They didn't just reveal pain, they suggested betrayal, manipulation, and hidden motives that left viewers questioning everything they thought they knew about Charlie and the people closest to him. The leak spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, the texts were everywhere, reposted by political commentators, discussed in live streams, and embedded into trending hashtags. Every screenshot was analyzed like forensic evidence. On Reddit, users claimed the leak came from a trusted family account. On X, influencers shared side-by-side images linking Charlie's alleged messages to real interviews. Telegram groups claimed to have full threads, sparking chaos as people raced to decode each word. The digital noise was deafening and strategic. The way it spread suggested coordination, synchronized posts, identical captions, and timed boosts from large accounts. Some called it exposure, others called it revenge, but everyone agreed on one thing: the leak was no accident. It felt like someone had been waiting for the right moment to ignite it. And once it began, there was no stopping the wildfire that followed. Once the dust settled, people began to look closely at the messages themselves. The alleged texts weren't long, but their tone told a painful story. They revealed confusion, fear, and hints of something darker beneath the surface. Charlie's words painted a picture of a man realizing too late that the trust around him might have been carefully constructed. Phrases like, "decisions being made without me," and "I don't recognize the people running things anymore," left readers stunned. They sounded less like ordinary marital tension and more like coded warnings from someone slowly losing control of his own circle. Analysts and influencers began comparing these lines with real-world events inside Turning Point USA, noticing strange parallels: leadership shifts, sudden personnel changes, and new sponsors emerging at the same time. It was as if every message contained breadcrumbs leading toward a larger plan. Whether those texts were authentic or not almost didn't matter anymore. They had done their job, sparking suspicion that something far bigger was unfolding behind the scenes. After reading the texts, online investigators began connecting the dots. They traced the story backward to what looked like a fairy tale beginning in Israel, where Charlie reportedly met Erika during a leadership event. That chance encounter, followed by a 3-hour conversation at Bill's Burgers in New York, now felt strangely significant. Within weeks of that meeting, she appeared in TPUSA circles, quickly gaining trust and visibility. Over time, key staff members began leaving, event schedules shifted, and new sponsors appeared seemingly out of nowhere. What once looked like a natural rise now seemed almost orchestrated. The public started asking, was it all coincidence or the result of careful planning? The timeline showed a steady progression: presence, influence, then power. Each step subtle but consistent. And as the puzzle pieces fit together, even longtime supporters felt uneasy. Something beneath the surface had clearly been building for years, and those leaked texts were only the first crack exposing it. After reading the texts, online investigators began connecting the dots. They traced the story backward to what looked like a fairy tale beginning in Israel, where Charlie reportedly met Erika during a leadership event. That chance encounter, followed by a 3-hour conversation at Bill's Burgers in New York, now felt strangely significant. Within weeks of that meeting, she appeared in TPUSA circles, quickly gaining trust and visibility. Over time, key staff members began leaving. Event schedules shifted, and new sponsors appeared seemingly out of nowhere. What once looked like a natural rise now seemed almost orchestrated. The timeline showed a steady progression: presence, influence, then power. Each step subtle but consistent. And as the chain of events fell neatly into place, even longtime supporters felt uneasy. Something beneath the surface had clearly been building for years, and those leaked texts were only the first crack exposing it. As the story gained traction, former TPUSA insiders began to speak, cautiously but clearly. Anonymous testimonies started appearing on private forums and encrypted chats, each adding another layer to the controversy. Several claimed that soon after Erika's arrival, subtle but undeniable changes began rippling through the organization. Long-standing employees were reassigned, internal communications grew restricted, and certain names quietly vanished from event rosters. One ex-staffer described it as a silent reshuffle that nobody wanted to admit was happening. Others said they noticed new, unfamiliar figures attending closed meetings and making decisions that once required Charlie's direct approval. None of these accounts can be fully verified, but together they painted a striking pattern: influence slowly shifting from the founder's trusted core to a new circle forming around his wife. It wasn't loud, it wasn't public, but it was effective. The insiders called it the quiet takeover. What once looked like simple organizational growth began to feel like something more deliberate, carefully calculated, and strategically disguised as progress. With whispers spreading inside TPUSA, investigators turned their attention to Erika's background, and what they found raised even more eyebrows. Public records, business filings, and archived press releases revealed her family's deep ties to several high-profile enterprises, including firms with defense and data contracts. A few of these companies were linked to private security consulting and intelligence research, industries far removed from conservative activism, yet quietly powerful in political spaces. These revelations set off a new round of questions. Was her rise purely organic? Or was it backed by an unseen network providing access, funding, and protection? Old interviews showed Erika downplaying her family's influence, but the paperwork told a different story: connections stretching across borders and industries that rarely intersect by accident. The deeper people dug, the more the pattern looked intentional. Suddenly, the leaked texts seemed to fit within a much broader context, one where personal relationships, business power, and political positioning were intertwined. The narrative was shifting fast, and it was no longer just about betrayal. It was about control. As more evidence surfaced, online investigators began circling a chilling possibility: the so-called honeypot theory. The idea suggested that Erika's entrance into Charlie's life might not have been accidental at all, but a calculated move by powerful interests seeking influence from within. The rapid timeline of her rise, from a supposed chance meeting to a position of influence inside TPUSA, suddenly seemed too smooth, too perfectly aligned. Analysts pointed to classic hallmarks of a setup: emotional connection, swift trust building, and eventual control over access and information. Still, others warned against rushing to conclusions, reminding viewers that charisma and ambition can create similar outcomes without conspiracy. Yet every new document, every interview snippet, seemed to reinforce the theory's eerie plausibility. If true, it meant the organization wasn't simply infiltrated, it was reprogrammed from within. The story that once read like a romance was now being rewritten as a blueprint of manipulation. Whether fact or coincidence, the theory caught fire, and audiences could no longer look away. The controversy reached its emotional peak after Charlie's passing. His memorial, meant to be a solemn farewell, became a flashpoint of division and suspicion. Supporters expected a quiet ceremony in his hometown, yet it was suddenly moved to Arizona, the same place where new leadership announcements would follow just days later. Many of Charlie's family members were absent, fueling speculation that internal fractures had deepened beyond repair. Photos and videos from the event showed smiles and interviews only hours after the service, leaving followers uneasy. To them, it didn't feel like mourning, it felt like transition. Within a week, key decisions were made, new faces stepped forward, and old allies quietly disappeared from the scene. People began to ask whether the memorial had been a tribute or a turning point, the final step in a plan that had been unfolding in plain sight. What was supposed to bring closure instead opened a floodgate of questions, each more unsettling than the last. As the dust began to settle, one truth stood out. The story was far from complete. Despite endless speculation, the public had only fragments, screenshots, testimonies, and scattered records. The alleged texts raised questions, but the real answers were buried deeper, in donor ledgers, board communications, and private correspondence that had never seen the light of day. Investigators began urging whistleblowers to come forward, to reveal who signed the new contracts, who approved the sudden staffing shifts, and who benefited financially from the changes that followed. Every clue pointed toward something larger, but without hard evidence, the picture remained blurred. Experts stressed that emotional narratives can distract from the paper trail, and it's the paper trail that always tells the truth. For now, the mystery remains unsolved, hanging between rumor and revelation. What's clear, though, is that the organization that once moved in unison now stands fractured by suspicion. Every unanswered question feels like a countdown to something bigger waiting to break open. Now, the question isn't just what happened, it's what happens next. The alleged leak has cracked open a world few dared to question, revealing how power, loyalty, and secrecy intertwine at the highest levels. Viewers across platforms are demanding transparency. They want receipts, audits, and accountability from those who shaped the narrative and profited from the chaos. Analysts predict that more leaks, more witnesses, and possibly even legal action could emerge as pressure mounts. But beyond politics, this story has become a cautionary tale about trust, how easily influence can disguise itself as love, and how quickly loyalty can be rewritten by ambition. If the claims are true, the next phase will be explosive. If they're false, then someone has orchestrated one of the most devastating smears in modern conservative media. Either way, the truth is closing in, and when it arrives, no one will walk away untouched. Viewers, stay tuned, drop your thoughts below, and if you believe truth still matters, like, share, and subscribe, because this storm is only getting started.